Well, hello there. It's Liam here, and I'm joined with Jason Simmons and Andrew Brett. We are back for another episode of the Data Breach Playbook. Thank you, gentlemen, for taking the time to join me today.
Yeah, great to see you, mate.
Not a problem, Liam. Great to see you.
All right. Well, we are going to jump into the topic of cyber forensics and, well, more specifically, digital forensics in the context of a data breach. So, I might open the podcast with a pretty broad and open question to either Andrew or Jason. So, feel free to jump in. Um, Firstly, what is forensics in the context of a data breach? And does for every data breach that happens, or for every, I guess, cyber incident, if we make it a bit more broad, is cyber forensics or digital forensics required?
Yeah, it's a great question. Yeah, thanks, Andrew. Um, Firstly, a disclaimer. All good lawyers start with a disclaimer. I am not a
Always.
techie, so
Yeah.
I do not understand digital forensics as an expert in any way. I'm a lawyer that works with some fantastic digital forensic experts, and through my experience engaging some of the best going around on many incidents, the way it works generally is that you engage digital forensics when a particular incident requires a closer investigation of a network or requires assistance with usually some kind of like a ransomware attack where a system is disrupted. And that, as a law firm, because I'm part of a law firm, we draw the line at the advice we give doesn't require us to be in the network or in the system of our clients. Rather, we get an external vendor, which we call digital forensic experts, to investigate what's going on. And how we decide as a team at Mills whether we're going to engage an external vendor. I have a cybersecurity expert in my team as part of our incident response team, and he has a great plethora of experience coming out of um, some roles within government, whereby he understands when we first triage incidents and get to know what's going on, whether we're going to need a deeper dive. And we have vendors that we work with regularly that we reach out to for different incidents and bring them on board. And the way we do that, it's pretty boring. It's like a good old fashioned lawyer to third party engagement. We engage them, through a letter of engagement, ensuring that legal professional privilege applies to the opinion that they're going to give us to assist us with the legal advice that we're giving to our clients. And we've talked about that in a previous pod, and it's really important that that relationship is established. And then from there, just like I'm sure people watching understand, an investigation is really a step by step process. They initially meet with the client. They then, are given some kind of access to their network. They go in and have a look. They obtain evidence, obviously, including like logs. They might meet with particular people within the client's team, IT, maybe the particular staff member that was involved in the incident. And they'll start to create a bit of a picture of what's going on. And throughout that process, the guy on my team, he's working hand in hand with them to understand what they're seeing. We give them, instructions, and then we're feeding that information back to the client in the legal advice that needs to flow out of those findings. It might be, sorry guys, this is looking like a data breach that we're going to have to notify, starting to get them
Mm.
ready for that process. It might be an attack that needs to be referred to a government agency. And if they've got cyber insurance, fantastic. We're keeping the insurer closely updated with what we're doing because we want costs covered through the policy. We also want
Mm.
the insurer to be aware of where we're going, future liabilities. They've got things like cost reserves that they've got to worry about. And then on the side too, we make sure that the broker who's actually got the relationship with the client with regards to the insurance, we keep them up to date as well. Because the great thing about the insurance industry and the way it works in cyber in particular is that the relationships aren't always obvious to people who haven't experienced it, but it can really help when you do understand it. And when you understand that a broker often has a relationship with a client for months, if not years, prior to us getting involved in an incident. And if you know what's starting to really go wrong, like we're starting to find things that aren't good news, the person often who's going to help them process the difficulties of what they're going through is the broker, because they've got this relationship with them. They understand their business. They understand maybe some of the financial strains or some of the even persons within the organization, while I'm just starting to get to know them. And so what we do, part of our process flow is that, yes, engaging closely with client, working with digital forensics, getting instructions from the insurer, but also keeping the broker involved. Because I can tell you, mate, when things start to really go wrong, there's nothing better than bringing in like a team on a meeting where you've got broker, client, forensics, my team, and we all sit there together and have a conversation about where things are at. So I hope that kind of answers your question, what it looks like. But I thought it was important to kind of bring Andrew's role into that, because often it's something that's missed.
I think the big thing, that I can only chime in on is, like Jason sort of would attest, I think he would. This is all fantastic when the insurer's picking up the tab. And that's my message to listeners and any watchers is this is all gets a lot. The bit that gets lumped in if you're doing it on your own dime is the constant questions that we see is, how much is this going to be? How much, and so you're not making a decision based on what's best practice. You're making a decision on what's in the kitty, what's and it is tough. Some, as we all know, some months you're flush with cash. Some months you sort of putting bread and butter on the table and going, well, this is a good enough meal, and that's just the life of the business owner in Australia. So yeah, I just wanted to put that part in. Is this is what it should look like, but this is what it can look like to a lot of people where they're going, I get what you're saying, Jason. I know that's what we need to do, but I just don't have the finances for that.
Such a good point, mate, because
you can see when it's not something you can see, and Jason's and his team say, look, we need to, like you said, we may need to go build a blueprint, and that's, I can't tell you what it is here. I can't, with a car accident, like I can tell you this is a fender bender or this is, I can see it, but sometimes you have to go create it. So yeah, I just wanted to add that in because it's something to think about. This is what best practice looks like, and that's where cyber insurance really helps, because Jason will attest that he does both insurance and non-insurance work, and he can tell you that the client's reactions is chalk and cheese.
Yeah, it's really tricky because you get to a point pretty quick in an investigation, literally a day or so, where you start to feel a real tension between, okay, the law requires you to think about these things. To get there, we're going to have to go down this road, and that's going to carry some cost, potentially some significant cost. And it creates a tension about, am I going to comply with the law, potentially or potentially not, because the cost of doing so is too exorbitant to my business? And that's where I think the government understands in the legislation that there needs to be a little bit of wiggle room, right? And that's why when it comes to forensically investigating an incident, the test under the Privacy Act is undertaking a reasonable assessment of whether there's been an eligible data breach. And that's really important to insurers who are struggling with that decision, because it's not it does give them the ability to get advice on where does that reasonableness lie in this situation. So it's not as though any time there's any kind of data breach, you've got to go down this road, because it would be incriminating, small business every day. But on the flip side, it does then create a temptation. I think that's what you're getting at, Andrew, for businesses to stick their head in the sand and say, well, we don't really know. If we just shut them out, get some new passwords, move on, I think we'll be okay, and just see if we get away with it. And it's a real risk. It's a real risk because the regulators find out about incidents in all sorts of ways. I also think it's a risk to your culture and even to yourself, in terms of if you're making a decision as a result of a cyber attack to maybe conduct your business in a way that you wouldn't maybe in other areas. It's almost like we've been comparing cyber a bit to car insurance and car accidents. It's kind of like doing a hit and run.
You just can't see it, right?
So if you think you've knocked over someone in a back street, no one's around, and you take off because the cost of the insurance claim or the injuries or the criminal action potentially. What if you've had a couple of drinks, i.e., your cybersecurity is not great? Let's take off. But do you know, like, what if the person obviously, they report the incident, maybe they saw what the car looked like, maybe you've been spotted on a camera. You don't know, right? But you're going to run that risk and just see. And so then you've gone from being just an everyday person driving along to now being someone who's doing a hit and run, really. And I feel like in businesses now where you're having these cyber attacks where you might think, oh, it's just a compromise of a mailbox. That's not something I need to worry about. But that mailbox might include a bunch of sensitive stuff that your clients have given you, or maybe access to to some drives that you maybe should have locked down a bit tighter, but you didn't because you're too busy, or it costs a little bit extra through your MSP. Now you've got to make this decision. Are you going to do the right thing here, or are you just going to do the runner and see how you go? And I really hope that organisations start to see that they don't have to be that. There's great insurance out there that's not as expensive as you think. There's a lot of great incident response security people and law firms that can assist. And I think those days are gone where you can sort of use the excuse that how do you get help, or it's too expensive. There's ways. You've got to engage and check yourself with what type of organisation you're running.
And that's a great point, Jason. Let's ask on the pod. Obviously, no one can answer at the moment, but all the listeners at home, think about it. Like, if you had to go find a digital forensics expert in minutes, let's say minutes, because we'd rather not hours. Not many people are going to ring up their mates and go, "Hey, I've just had a cyber incident. Do you reckon you guys could throw me a digital forensics contact?" So I keep harping on about this saying, it's incident response retainer solution. That's really what you should be looking at cyber insurance as, and it is to a degree. Jason's doing these every day with these. He talks about the insurer relationships. I talk about Jason's relationships. Jason's got the relationships with all the digital forensics guys. He knows the quality of the service levels. They've also got standards they're going to adhere to because they've been doing this together. They want to keep working with Jason. So you've almost, it's that, because we've got to go deeper, right? We have to talk to business owners differently. We can't just throw a number at them, and say, this is cyber insurance, you need to buy it. It doesn't work that way. You have to, I'm trying to, and I can only speak for him for sure, but really walk them through, like, this is that peace of mind, sleep easy, where Jason's vetted the quality of the digital forensics. We can go piece things together you can't see to see whether you've unfortunately may have hit some old lady and she's you're not going to look back in the rear vision mirror, but she's there still. It happened, and as Jason said, in hindsight, when it's in the advertisement, it says person's hit an old lady and she's on the ground, people are going to judge. They're just going to go, well, I wouldn't have done that. But so we're talking about, well, I want to keep it on digital forensics, but talking about that, as you said, understanding what has happened and addressing it, being able to address it, and as I said, keeping that quality. We're giving you a peace of mind that the quality is going to be there. It's not going to cost the arm and the leg, or that maybe the preconceived conception is out there. So, I sound like a broken record, but saying it in different ways, car insurance or building surveys, or whoever we say in this podcast, we're doing it because we need people to click. Because at the moment, talking technical jargon, it's just not. There's no correlation between what people are saying and what people are feeling. Spicy Friday.
Spicy Fridays. We like the spice. I think just talking on the topic of digital forensics, Andrew, you said something in one of the previous episodes that stuck with me a little bit in terms of just helping understand the purpose or one of the purposes of digital forensics. You said, if you do have to declare a data breach, you have to inform people, or you want to know exactly what's been taken rather than just going to everyone and saying, hey, we had a data breach. Good luck. you want to be able to tell people exactly what's been taken. So I think I just wanted to bring that back up, because I think in terms of the relationship and managing the emotions and oh my goodness, we're gonna have to tell people, I think that's incredibly important.
Couldn't agree more, mate. I'll yell that from the rooftops. I have experienced so many times that the difference between a quality notification with appropriate details of what's been compromised, what's the specific information that the individual you are writing to has that's been impacted. Not some generic, oh, hey, your information, which includes the following 27 categories, has potentially been accessed at some point over the last 14 years. We don't have any evidence of anything really, but we're just letting you know. I would argue it's not complying with the Privacy Act, but it's not good enough. Like, forensics becomes, and if I can extend the conversation slightly into the data forensics as well, which can be undertaken by the same company, but also is undertaken by specialist, data forensic firms that we work with. And so then you extend the relationship where we engage, again, another vendor, but then you've got us, client, digital forensics, data review specialists, and we all work with the same data set. And those review specialists are able to put the data, which can be in terabytes in size, into a platform that's designed specifically to find names, addresses, phone numbers, Medicare cards, passports, licenses, PDFs with all this stuff embedded, photos. It is developing very rapidly, the technology. I'm actually wearing a T-shirt of one of them, and they are really clever at finding the PI that then goes into the notification that goes out to customers. And if you just do a blasé job of, oh, well, we've had the G file potentially accessed, and within that was all this data, and we're just letting you know because you're in our customer list, how do they know if it was just their name, which they don't need to care about, or if it was their passport, Medicare number, TFN, and suddenly we've just seen very recently how criminals are credential stuffing, particular accounts that are really vital to people with information they've probably gotten from another data breach where they are able to get access to their personal information. If they're not aware that they've had that information hacked over here, how are they going to then react when they've got another organization saying, hey, need you to update your stuff because we're seeing criminals using your information from somewhere else? Like, we haven't had our system compromised. It's actually information they've gotten about you. You're probably going to think, oh, well, I haven't really been impacted by anything. So, but you may have received a blasé notification, but it's just gone out of your head because it didn't hit the mark in how it's impacted you.
I'll come in with my analogy. Like you said, Jason, it's like a GP or a doctor giving you a mile or like a 1/10 of a diagnosis, and you're there sitting there going, what? Like, it's almost worse. Like, you start, and the fact is, some of these companies, as you said, Jason, they're like, oh, you may, in some of these subcategories, maybe this. Sometimes we've gone to companies with different information. We've changed an email, but we've shopped with them more than once, or we've dealt with them more than once. Like, which one have you lost? Like, I don't know. And as you said, it's more, I won't use names, but some of these incident response, the public ones, you can almost tell, like, they can't make a statement. 2 days later, they make another statement. And then obviously with the way the world is, they're going, wait a minute, those two statements don't match up. You can very much tell that they don't have the information. They're not, I think as you said in a previous episode, that stuck with me a lot, Jason. It really did. Sometimes just because you're under 3 mil, people say I'm okay, but the government might not even be your biggest worry. It might be the commercial element and reputational, and unfortunately, some partnerships fall because others want to dust their hands clean. Sorry, we can't be seen to be working with you because it's going to maybe cross onto us. And that's not a given, right? You know, I think we've got to, might be off topic, but I feel like we're not. I mean, I think there's this messaging, and sometimes by some people that, you know, to sell their cyber products, they're basically like, you know, you are going to be taken out. It's like, we've moved on. Like, incidents aren't an instant death warrant or a death certificate. Like, if it's done correctly, it's kind of like falling off your bike as a kid, right? You didn't just die. Like, yeah, you might have broken an arm, you might have scratched yourself, but if you had the right, well, you have the right things in place, like, it's sort of like, we're going to get you back. We're going to get you back on the bike. We're going to get you riding again. And this will just be one of the stories you tell the kids in the schoolyard, you know. Whereas I think from my time on the ground, some of these business owners are like, oh, well, from what I'm being told, I'm just going to be going out of business anyway. So, you know, it's probably addressing that thing where, well, no, it's a possibility, because we don't know, and you're never going to. No one in this room is going to say anything's 100%. But, you know, as you said, by putting the things in place and by being able to go to a client saying, look, Mr. John Citizen, we've lost this mobile number, this email address, specifics, like watch out for these ones. This is where it's going to get you. You know, and as we were talking about cost, Jason, you know, the cost of having to go get a new passport, or having to go get these things changed, no one's going to do that on a wild goose chase. Like, oh, we may have lost these 27 pieces of generic information. Okay, so do you want me to go replace everything on the whim that you've given me? Or because if you tell me the 5 or 6 you've lost, I'll go do that. Like, at least you've given me some direction, and then it's almost a level of respect, right? They feel respected a bit to the, like, okay, you care about what you've lost on me, rather than, as you said, generic this, maybe this, might that. You know, they're going, what the heck is going? How do they take it seriously if you haven't taken it seriously?
Yeah, and you can cause harm to people too in that process. So say you've got a, like, when you're notifying hundreds of people, of course the response, the emotional response received from people when they get the notification varies hugely. From some people can't delete it fast enough, right through to that's just totally send them into a spin. And you don't want to send people, the ones who are going to react really negatively, cause greater harm than you needed to, because you've told them that it might include sensitive information when it doesn't for them. And just to pull back the curtain a little bit, the difference between being able to give just a generic notification to a long list of people to giving specific notifications requires two things: time and money. That's the only difference, because we've got the people who can do it. We've got the technology to do it. It just takes time and money. Now, I realize the regulations have tight timeframes, but if you have good lawyers helping you, you can deal with those timelines effectively. Either you can get it done in time, or you can get extensions in working alongside the team at the OAIC. They are not the bad guys here. They have a job to do. You can work with them to get notifications done in the timeframes they're happy with. So that's time factor. The second one's money. To go from looking at a data set, or not even looking at it, just understanding my client list has been potentially impacted, let's tell them all, through to I'm now telling Jane Smith that it's her name, mobile and Medicare card that's been compromised, requires that data set going through technology, being forensically reviewed, and having machines do it up to a point, and then have humans looking at it to get into the nitty-gritty a bit more, until you get to that point, and it takes experience to know when to go, that's enough. Because you could review forever some of these data sets. You just keep going for months and months and months. You draw a line, you say, look, we have undertaken a reasonable assessment. Here is the best list we can provide, broken up into categories. Like my team, like I've got a fantastic lawyer in my team who literally splits up the data set across individuals into categories, where you've got the high sensitive information category 1 people, and there might be only a small number in that. You know, they've unfortunately had IDs, photos, nasty stuff, health info compromised, and we draft a notification for them, which is, as you can probably appreciate, it's a bit more careful. It's specific. it's a bit caring as well. Like, you know, the acknowledgement that this has happened to them is really important. Right through to, if you decide to notify a large group who's only had their name, email, and address may be compromised, then for different reasons you just feel like you want to tell them. You might not even have to, but you decide to. The notification's going to be pretty, dear customer, we've had this incident. Your name, email address has been impacted. Here is some steps you can take to protect yourself from scams. You can go to this website for more information. Here's an email, generic email of the company if you want to contact us. All the best. 99% of the time, you probably won't get a reply from them. But I can tell you, it's not 99 at the other end. You're probably going to get every second person coming back to you going, do I need to replace my Medicare card now? Yeah, yes, you do. Go to this site. It would already be in the notification, but often they need just that little bit more hand-holding. Some don't reply. So be it. That's their choice. You've complied with the law. And then when you go to the OAIC, when they ask you, have you notified? Yes. Category 1, 2, 3, 4. They got this one. They got this one. And they're like, okay, thanks very much. Good job. Close the file. That's the goal. So time and money is what it takes.
And that's the other thing. It's like, as a business owner running a business, like to buy the previous relationship, previous experience and knowledge of Jason to be able to go do that and be like, right, I don't have to learn how to be a professional and what to do, in OAC and the Privacy Commission. Jason's his team, and as Jason said, it's not just Jason. He's representing his team, but he has many hands make light work. And it's sort of like that. They know the process. They know exactly how to make this, it can be really bad. If you want it to make it bad, look at some, I won't say who, but some recent lawsuits against maybe one regulatory body and one securities company. And that's how bad it can be. That's fine. That's your choice. If you want to make that choice, go right ahead. But this podcast is for people who actually want to, set up something so they go, right, I don't need to be an expert in this because I've engaged Jason and I'm going to let him handle it for me. Like most things in life, right? I don't do things I don't need to, right? We're all at that point where, like, if there's someone that has done this a million times, fantastic. For me, it's the worst day of my business life. For Jason, it's a Tuesday. Like, it's literally just a Tuesday. And it's not in a bad way. He just it's like, yep.
Well, like, would you take your broken down car down to the mechanic with a sign on the door that says, looking for first customer?
Yeah.
Like, you're going to pick the guy that's got some years under his belt. He's got a fantastic, great recruit. He's keen to, you want to see an experienced team. You want to see probably a busy car park of cars that have been fixed. Like, you want to see, I think they know what they're doing.
So I don't have to know what I'm doing. I'm paying you, so I don't have to learn because I'm a flower shop.
I'm hopeless on cars.
Well, I've got 2 weddings coming up this weekend. I'm not interested in learning OAC for 4 hours, tonight.
And I think as well, just to jump in there too, from an MSP and MSSP perspective, when we talk to this level of your client, the business owner, having to have these conversations to the level of, we need to advise our client base that there has been a data breach, like that's a real conversation. And I think that's another really good validation piece for MSPs and MSSPs, IT providers, TSPs, whatever you want to call them, making sure that your clients do have some form of cyber coverage for this reason. Like Andrew, you were saying about, this the skill set that Jason has and the instant response, absolutely. And that also, not that IT MSPs should be doing the stuff that Jason does, not at all, but it also helps take the pressure off, makes you sure that your client's covered, because at the end of the day, depends on the MSP you work with, but typically MSPs do care about their clients. Some maybe not.
Most do, mate. That's my experience, and I think that's why having you lead this pod is so important, Lam. I'm gonna pat you on the back, because most of the time, when it's not insured, Andrew, the start of the incident is the MSP IT person identifying something.
Mm.
When we're talking small business, they've seen something, some suspicious activity. They've been notified possibly by another vendor that they're using technology-wise, platform-wise, and then the first call is MSP to client, or, which I'm hoping will start to happen more, and I believe it is, MSP calls me straight away and goes, I've got a client. Are you available to jump on a call? I've given them the heads up that something's not right. Can we triage what's going on so we can hit the ground running? That'd be amazing. And I'm like, absolutely, mate. Like, give me 30 seconds and I'll have me and another team member on a Teams call, or, let's go. And so, yeah, mate, like, hats off to you, because I can't get a voice out to MSPs easily. Like, it's just not part of my world naturally. Likewise, you'd probably find it hard to go and meet 500 lawyers, but I can just go to a legal conference and walk the room. I probably know 200 people without even trying, from, previous life experiences. So I think it's such an important stage in the development of where we're at in Australia, is
100%.
understanding that your role is everything. It's you're the one that is connected with the client, and you too, Andrew, from on the insurance side. I'm usually the stranger that comes in.
Yeah.
So, it's great.
Absolutely. And so I think this is a great opportunity to close out the episode, because the very next episode we're going to talk about cyber insurance. We're going to spend a lot of time just having a good conversation about cyber insurance. I know we've talked about it a lot in this podcast, but we'll kind of hone in particularly on that. So I think that's a great opportunity we'll end the episode there. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for your time, and another great conversation around data forensics, but then also breaches and the PR element as well, which is something that is quite often forgotten, I think, until you're in the moment. So really appreciate your time. Thank you so much. And we'll see you next episode. Thanks.